Following the debut of The Return of Godzilla in Japan in 1984, Toho Studios began shopping around the North American distribution rights to the film to major studios, all whom passed. Eventually the rights were handed over to New World Pictures, an independent production company founded by cult film legend Roger Corman. Their strategy for adapting the film for American theatrical distribution ended up being very similar to the one used for the original film, dubbing the Japanese footage while shooting new footage that would be added to give more of a Western flavor. They even went so far as to bring back actor Raymond Burr to portray an older and more grizzled Steve Martin, tying it directly to Godzilla King of the Monsters. Boosted by a $10 million marketing tie-in with Dr. Pepper, the film, retitled to simply Godzilla 1985, was released in American theaters with little fanfare, though would go on to become a classic for those who grew up with it. After the Japanese fishing vessel Yahata Maru is attacked by a massive creature, its sole survivor confirms it to be Godzilla, who hasn't been seen for 30 years. This sets the Japanese on high alert, and after the sinking of a Soviet submarine, the United States calls in the aid of Mr. Steve Martin, the only American to have witnessed the attack of the first Godzilla back in 1956. As Godzilla makes landfall in Tokyo, Mr. Martin and the Pentagon can only watch as the Japanese do everything in their power to try and stop him. Godzilla 1985 is probably the most unique Americanization in the Godzilla series for the simple fact that it operates as a direct sequel to a previous one. Through the character of Steve Martin, here once again played by Raymond Burr, the film explicitly connects itself to 1956's Godzilla King of the Monsters. Burr's presence, however, is much more limited this time, relegated to just standing around and offering ominous commentary to the Japanese footage him and the rest of the American cast are watching on screen. And much like before, it's good commentary, elevated by Burr's performance. This Steve Martin is an older, wiser, and more grizzled character than he was in the original, and his warnings add a bit of dark, foreboding atmosphere to the story that gives it an extra layer of grandiosity.
To remind us of how puny we really are in the face of a tornado, an earthquake, or a Godzilla.
Like the Americanization of King Kong vs. Godzilla, most of the added footage is limited to a small cast in a single location, monitoring the situation as a means of adding some Western flavor to it, which in this case consists of some comic relief that clashes a bit with the overall tone. Thankfully, however, it's never too overdone. These scenes also act as a not-so-subtle product placement for Dr. Pepper, leading to some unintentional moments of comedy if you know what you're looking for. Aside from these substantial inserts, the rest of the film is relatively the same as its Japanese counterpart, just trimmed down and given a respectable dub. Despite reportedly not wanting to take the material too seriously, New World's dub for the most part retains the core of the story, and the voice acting, while not the greatest, gets the job done well enough.
We will not make, possess, or allow nuclear weapons.
The biggest and most controversial change actually comes in the way Godzilla 1985 portrays the USSR. While the Japanese version is pretty neutral either way, and has the Soviets accidentally firing an atomic missile at Tokyo, this cut edits it so that it looks like they intentionally fire the missile. The added American footage is then used to emphasize the United States' response, and thus makes them out to be more heroic. Given the tensions between the US and the Soviet Union at the time, this isn't all that surprising, and gives Godzilla 1985 a bit more potency as an artifact of recent global history.
The boys over at NSA are reporting stepped-up Soviet activity, and we got a confirmation from SATCOM the Ruskies are on alert.
Alert?
Yes, sir.
And so, like Godzilla King of the Monsters before it, Godzilla 1985 operates as a valuable and interesting alternative version of its Japanese counterpart. Those who have a fondness for its predecessor will enjoy seeing Raymond Burr back as Steve Martin, even if his presence amounts to little more than an extended cameo. Like he did 30 years previously, he commits fully to the role, and elevates the material he is given. It operated as an introduction to Godzilla for an entire generation of American fans, and for that it remains a cherished entry in the franchise. For more reviews and opinions on all things Godzilla, subscribe and stay tuned to Up From the Depths.